Forget everything you remember about 2019. No toilet paper shortages, no masks, no lockdown memes. Because in this timeline, there is no COVID-19. There is only death. Fast, bloody, unstoppable. You wake up to headlines that don't mention a novel virus, but a confirmed outbreak of something far older. Bubonic plague, the Black Death. And unlike the 14th century, this time the world is more connected, more crowded, and more fragile than ever. Here results not a slow pandemic, but a flash extinction event. Let's dive into the nightmare that could have been the terrifying alternate 2019 where the Black Death returned to a world completely unprepared. In our reality, COVID-19 disrupted the world. It overwhelmed healthcare systems, stalled economies, and changed how billions of people live. But it wasn't fast. It wasn't utterly fatal. And it gave us time to react, time to learn, time to fight back. Now imagine if instead of a virus that kills 1 to 2%, we faced a pathogen that wiped out up to 60% of those infected within just days. This alternate 2019 begins in a similar way. Rumors of a sickness in a foreign region, but this time, the symptoms are grotesque. Swollen black buboes in the groin and armpits, fever so high it burns the brain, victims coughing blood into their palms, then collapsing in the streets. By the time authorities realize what they're dealing with, it's already everywhere, spread by planes, ports, and panicked populations. Quarantine is no longer a policy, it's a desperate, chaotic instinct. Hospitals fall in the first week. Entire apartment buildings are found silent, every unit inside dead. Governments try to respond, but they're facing a biological wildfire with no playbook. And with a global population now pushing 8 billion, the stakes are infinitely higher than they were in medieval Europe. So what does that first month look like when the Black Death burns through our modern world faster than we can even react? The plague arrives like a whisper, but spreads like a scream. It begins in Southeast Asia, or maybe North Africa. No one's really sure. The first cases are dismissed as isolated, maybe even hoaxes. But within 72 hours, hospitals in 3 countries report the same grim details. Rapid fever onset, lymph nodes swelling, internal hemorrhaging, and death within 24 to 72 hours. The pathogen isn't a virus, it's Yersinia pestis, the same bacterium that killed nearly 200 million people during the Black Death of the 14th century. But this time, it's not arriving by merchant ship. It's flying business class. Airports unknowingly scatter the disease across continents before a single border can be closed. Day 4, first confirmed death in New York City, a nurse. Day 5, Paris and Tokyo shut down their metro systems after passengers begin collapsing on train platforms. Day 6, Johannesburg reports entire families found dead in their homes. Day 7, India's government declares a nationwide emergency, but it's already too late. The slums, the cities, the trains, they're all contaminated. By the end of the first week, the death toll isn't in the thousands, it's in the millions. This version of the plague is a particularly aggressive strain, believed to have mutated pneumonic transmission as its primary vector. That means it's airborne, and it kills fast. No slow build-up, no long incubation period. You either isolate early or die publicly. Emergency rooms overflow in less than 48 hours. In places like Jakarta, São Paulo, and Cairo, the dead are stacked in the streets, wrapped in tarps, burned in mass pits, or left to rot where they fell. There are no body bags, just piles. Mass hysteria erupts when footage leaks of a town in southern Italy where nearly everyone dies within 48 hours of exposure. Children, doctors, police, all gone. It becomes the defining image of the outbreak, shared across every platform. TikTok is flooded with people posting what they think are their final messages. Some cry, some laugh, some accept. But everyone is watching. And that's what makes this different from the 1500s. The entire world watches the death happen, live. You see it, you feel it, and when someone coughs on the subway beside you, you don't think COVID, you think Black Death. You run. Pharmacies are emptied in hours, not for vaccines, because none exist, but for antibiotics, painkillers, anything. People raid vet clinics and rural supply stores for livestock medicine, hoping it might work. Most of it doesn't. Day 12. Over 40 countries have entered full martial law, but the military is crumbling too. Soldiers are infected, officers flee their posts, tanks sit idle while cities burn. By day 15, nearly every major city on Earth has confirmed mass fatalities. Hospitals have closed, supermarkets are looted, the internet is breaking down. Not from infrastructure loss, but from human loss. The engineers and technicians who keep it running, they're either dead, dying, or trying to save their families. Day 20, electricity starts to fail in some countries. Rolling blackouts become permanent in places like Nigeria, Bangladesh, and even parts of the Southern America. By the time we reach day 30, the world is unrecognizable. No more morning commutes, no more school drop-offs, no more phone calls to customer service, just silence and sirens and smoke. The global death toll, conservatively, 500 million, but the body count is just the beginning. What happens next is the collapse, not just of lives, but of systems. Let's talk about how the global economy and civilization itself begins to unravel within weeks. When the plague hits, the modern world doesn't get a warning, it gets a death sentence. And once the initial shock passes, something even more terrifying begins. The chain reaction collapse of everything humanity depends on. Worldwide travel comes to a halt within 2 weeks. Airlines cancel every flight, not because of lockdown mandates, but because their staff is dead or dying. Air traffic control stations go silent. Pilots refuse to fly. Entire fleets are grounded. Airports transform into temporary morgues, with terminals cluttered with abandoned baggage and unclaimed bodies. Seaports follow. With no one to offload containers and no truckers to transport goods, ships drift at anchor, loaded with everything from food to medicine to fuel. Some never dock again. Trade routes disintegrate. The global economy, already based on fragile just-in-time logistics, grinds to a halt. Raw materials stop moving. Factories shut down. Wall Street tries to remain open virtually, but by day 18 there's no one left to trade. The stock market doesn't crash. It just vanishes, its servers blinking out one by one. And then comes the banking collapse. With institutions understaffed and connectivity breaking down, digital infrastructure fails. People can't access money. Banks close their doors. Credit cards stop working. ATMs are destroyed or abandoned. The digital economy vanishes. Supply chains implode. Supermarkets are looted clean within hours. But what's worse is that there's nothing left to replenish them. No crops being harvested. No goods being packaged. No truckers alive to drive them. Power grids strained under the pressure. At first, blackouts are blamed on demand. But it's not about demand, it's about manpower. Utility companies can't maintain critical infrastructure. In nuclear facilities, skeleton crews operate under biohazard suits until they too fall ill. Warnings circulate about impending meltdowns. Some governments consider shutting down plants permanently, risking national power failure. Others simply lose control. Public transportation ceases to exist. Subways are shuttered. Buses sit abandoned. Gasoline becomes more valuable than gold. And those who have cars quickly realize they're no longer a tool for convenience, but for escape. Law enforcement collapses. Police precincts are overwhelmed, not just by the sick, but by survivors desperate for medicine, food, or protection. Eventually, officers stop showing up. Prisons are left unguarded. Some are burned down in riots. Others are opened, letting thousands of hardened criminals walk free into a lawless world. And yet, even now, it's not just the physical infrastructure falling apart, it's the governments. Politicians vanish from public view. Many die early, having ignored the plague's severity. Others are evacuated to undisclosed bunkers, leaving nations leaderless. Panic spreads. States of emergency are declared by voices that no longer inspire confidence. Emergency broadcasts loop on TVs and radios, repeating pre-recorded instructions. Stay inside, boil water, seek medical attention if symptoms arise. But by week 3, nobody's watching. In cities across the world, power shuts down, hospitals go dark, skyscrapers are silent tombs, gas stations explode, the smell of rot is constant. And yet, even worse than the physical devastation, is the silence. That's when it hits people. This isn't a phase. This isn't a bad season or a political failure. This is the end of the modern world. No rescue is coming, no vaccine, no plan. But even when systems fall, something deeper breaks too. the human psyche. What does it mean to live in a world where your neighbors are dead, your leaders are gone, and your own mind may be the next casualty? By the third week of the Black Death outbreak, the world isn't just physically dying, it's mentally unraveling. Because while death is visible, fear is viral. And in a hyper-connected world, panic moves faster than plague. Social media becomes a theater of despair. Instagram fills with eerie goodbye posts. TikTok becomes a gallery of grief and final confessions. Twitter, once obsessed with breaking news, now breaks under the weight of too much horror. People live stream their last moments, their isolation, their heartbreak. Parents holding feverish children, nurses crying in empty ER corridors. Influencers stop posting beauty tutorials and start posting farewell notes. What was once a digital playground becomes a collective funeral. As fear spreads, so does distrust. Nobody wants to talk. Nobody wants to touch. Neighbors turn on each other. That woman down the hall, she coughed. The man in the elevator, he looks pale. Friendship becomes a liability. Love becomes a risk. In some places, communities barricade themselves in. In others, they burn outsiders alive for even approaching. Humanity regresses to tribal instinct. Protect your own, suspect everyone else. Governments try to use media to maintain calm, but people no longer believe official voices. They've seen too much, lost too much. When the president speaks, half the viewers think he's already dead, and the video is AI generated. When a scientist promises stability soon, people laugh through tears. There is no soon anymore. Religious leaders step in to fill the void. Some promise divine retribution. This is God's cleansing. Others offer comfort, but even churches and mosques are emptying, either by choice or because their followers are already gone. And then comes the mass breakdown. Panic buying turns into looting. Looting turns into fighting. Fighting turns into open warfare in some urban centers. Cities like Los Angeles, Sao Paulo, Istanbul become battle zones, not between governments and terrorists, but between terrified civilians armed with kitchen knives, homemade explosives, or just fists. Mental health systems collapse instantly. Therapists can't help. Hotlines ring out. Anti-anxiety meds vanish from shelves, hoarded alongside antibiotics, and even those lucky enough to survive physically are consumed by survivor's guilt. Why did I live when they didn't? A unique form of PTSD sets in. Plague trauma. People compulsively disinfect surfaces long after there's no one left to transmit anything. Others refuse to speak above whispers, believing sound spreads death. Some go catatonic, simply lying in bed as the world rots around them. In rural areas, some survivors begin painting black crosses on their doors, not to mark infection, but to warn the universe. Don't take me to. But perhaps the most chilling effect is this. No one is planning for a future anymore. There are no goals, no dreams, no 5-year plans. Just getting to tomorrow, if tomorrow still exists. And yet, even through this psychological hellscape, a more silent killer is creeping in. The collapse of the invisible lifelines that keep modern society alive. Water, power, communication, and food. And when those fail, true anarchy begins. By the 4th week, society isn't just emotionally shattered, it's no longer functioning. The systems we depend on, the ones we never even think about, begin to fail. Quietly at first, then, all at once, the electric grid goes dark in entire regions, not from sabotage, but from absence. The people who maintain power stations, the technicians, engineers, grid operators, are either dead, fleeing, or holed up with their families. A single missed calibration, a single unmanned substation, and cities begin to black out. No lights, no heat, no internet. Nighttime becomes truly dark again, lit only by fires, some from looters, some from unattended equipment that failed catastrophically. Water systems follow quickly. Pumping stations shut down. Treatment facilities are abandoned. In the slums of Manila, in parts of Detroit, in rural villages, and towering megacities alike, water stops flowing. Toilets don't flush. Faucets spit rust and then go dry. People turn to wells, rivers, puddles, anything that resembles hydration, and when that fails, they drink contaminated water. Within days, cholera spreads, sewage systems fail, human waste overflows into city streets. Diseases that hadn't existed in centuries re-emerged. Typhoid, dysentery, even those who survived the plague begin dying from its aftermath. Communication collapses next. Cell towers stay online for a few days, automated, humming in the background. But as backup generators run dry and maintenance halts, they go offline one by one. Cell phones become useless, glass rectangles. Wi-Fi stops working, satellite networks degrade, and with them, the last fragile threads of global connection are disconnected. Families across continents can no longer check in. Governments can't issue national alerts. Scientists can't coordinate survival strategies. Everyone is cut off. Food systems obliterated. Grocery stores are now war zones. Distribution centers are abandoned. Farmers are either dead or unable to harvest, plant, or transport anything. Cows die in their pens. Crops rot in fields. Fishermen stop going to sea. And the last cargo ships still afloat. Floating tombs, unmanned and drifting. Within a month, hunger becomes universal. Urban areas are hit first. Millions trapped in food deserts with no escape. In wealthier nations, suburban families resort to raiding homes for canned goods. In poorer regions, famine hits instantly. People eat pets, then vermin, then, sometimes, each other. Medical infrastructure, non-existent. Hospitals are graveyards. Pharmacies looted bare. There are no ambulances, no emergency services. If you get injured, you bleed. If you get sick, you die. And if you survive, you're alone. Even storage of the dead collapses. There are too many bodies and not enough people left to bury them. Plague pits re-emerge. Corpses line streets, float in rivers, stack in schools turned makeshift morgues. The stench is inescapable. Flies swarm, rats multiply, and the very infrastructure meant to support human civilization begins to undo it. Bridges crumble without inspections. Subways flood without maintenance. Dams crack and fail, washing away entire towns with a final, roaring punctuation mark. And all the while, there's no news, no updates, just silence. This is no longer a functioning planet. It's a scattered graveyard, a patchwork of smoldering cities and quiet forests filled with ghosts. Yet, in the shadow of annihilation, something strange begins to emerge. Small flickers of human instinct for survival. Scattered communities, makeshift villages, localized micro-societies. The beginning of a post-collapse humanity. When the dust settles and the screaming stops, what's left of humanity is scattered, traumatized, and deeply changed. There is no coordinated response, no rebuilding effort, no world summit to unify the survivors, because the world is no longer one world. It's broken into fragments. Survivors emerge in small numbers, often by accident, not design. A prepper family in Idaho, untouched because they sealed themselves underground. A rural village in Siberia, isolated by snow and distance. A cargo ship that never docked, circling endlessly, floating above a dead world. These scattered groups become micro-civilizations, each with its own laws, customs, and fears. In North America, neighborhoods turn into fortified compounds. Former suburban homes are surrounded by barbed wire, with survivors patrolling rooftops, weapons in hand. Trade is reborn, but not with currency. It's barter now. A gallon of fuel for a pack of antibiotics. A chicken for a bottle of bleach. In rural China, rice farmers who avoided infection established local councils, governance by elders, enforced by necessity. No democracy, no ideology, just functionality. In parts of Africa, where decentralized living was already the norm, the transition is harsh, but not unfamiliar. Communities that once relied on cell towers and NGO aid adapt back to pre-digital survival. They begin growing their own food, digging new wells, creating small circles of resilience. But not all survivors rebuild. Some fall deeper into tribalism, forming cult-like groups, obsessed with plague mythology. One such group, found in the ruins of Milan, worships the Black Death itself as a divine cleanser. Another in Montana believes the plague was caused by 5G towers and burns every piece of technology they find. These are not functioning societies. They are pockets of delusion, fueled by grief, fear, and the need to find meaning in the ruin. And then there are the fortress cities. In a few rare places, Switzerland, Iceland, parts of New Zealand, communities had the resources and geography to wall themselves off early. They became hyper-controlled biozones, every entry point sterilized, every citizen tested, military on every corner. Inside, life continues, but in a stereo, soulless form. You're not free. You're preserved, like a specimen under glass. These places become myths to the rest of the world. Whispers about the safe zones. People walk for weeks, risking disease, starvation, ambush, just for a chance to knock on the gates. Most are turned away. Some are shot on sight. Communication between these fractured societies is rare. When it happens, it's by courier or by shortwave radio. Messages are short, cryptic, often paranoid. Still alive, still clean. Do not approach, or sometimes we need help. Bring seeds, bring medicine, please. But trust is dead. No one knows who might still be contagious. No one knows who might just want what you have. The global identity, the idea that we were one species, one civilization, is gone. Now it's us versus them, and them might be anyone. No more nations, just tribes. No more cities, just remnants. No more future, just survival. And yet, after months of darkness, when the population has been culled, and the earth begins to reclaim the silence, something darker still settles in. Not rebuilding, not rebirth, but a regression into a new kind of human era, a second dark age. By the end of the first year, humanity no longer resembles the world of 2019. Skyscrapers stand as empty monoliths. Highways are overgrown with vines. Satellites orbit silently overhead, transmitting nothing, receiving even less. And down on the ground, the few million humans left alive face a future not of progress, but of decay. This is not the rebirth of civilization. This is the erasure of it. In most places, the written word becomes irrelevant. Books decay, servers crash, screens go black. The digital archive of human knowledge, trillions of gigabytes, is inaccessible, useless, and forgotten. Kids are born into a world where electricity is a rumor, where the idea of space travel sounds like mythology, where the concept of the internet might as well be magic. Medicine regresses 300 years overnight. With no pharmaceuticals, people return to herbal remedies, poultices, and prayer. Surgery is done with knives heated over fire. Antibiotics, if found, are worth more than gold. And education, it's storytelling now. Elders pass down distorted memories of the old world, fragments of a life once filled with color, technology, and choice. But those memories fade quickly. Within a single generation, the idea that we once flew in metal birds, cured diseases with a pill, and spoke to someone across the planet in real time, becomes fiction. Some isolated zones attempt to hold on to knowledge. Former professors in the Alps form a monastery-like archive, hand-copying Wikipedia articles before batteries run out. Engineers in a South Korean cave bunker teach their children mathematics by candlelight. But they are the exceptions. For most, the regression is total. Cities become graveyards, AI labs, museums, hospitals, torn apart for scrap metal or burned for warmth. Old smartphones are used as mirrors or tools to smash open cans. Books are torn apart, not for reading, but for kindling. Even language begins to mutate. Without global connection, dialects fracture and evolve. Within decades, a child raised in New Zealand may no longer understand one raised in Norway. Cultural identity collapses inward, becoming hyperlocal, insular, suspicious. Religion re-emerges, not as faith, but as explanation. Why did the world end? Why did God punish us? The plague becomes myth, symbol, and warning. New belief systems emerge, some worshipping survival, others rooted in fatalism. Technology isn't rebuilt, it's feared. Communities that blame the downfall on science begin banning all remnants of the old world. No electricity, no machines, no medicine from before. They teach their children that the old gods were called engineers and doctors, and their arrogance brought the wrath of disease. These aren't civilizations anymore. They're pockets of humanity, living among ruins they no longer understand. It is a second dark age. But unlike the first, this one was self-inflicted, avoidable, predictable, triggered by our fragility. We were never built to withstand a medieval killer in a digital world, and so we're left with a haunting question. What if COVID-19 was only a preview, and the real plague, the forgotten one, had returned instead? What would we have lost? What fragile miracle would we have shattered forever? We like to believe we've outgrown history, that pandemics are a thing of the past, that our science, our infrastructure, Our connectivity makes us immune to collapse. But the Black Death was never just a disease. It was a test. And in this alternate 2019, we failed spectacularly. For all our power, all our data, all our global systems, we were never prepared for a killer that doesn't negotiate, that doesn't care about your GDP, that can kill faster than you can tweet. And when you strip away the technology, the culture, the comfort, you're left with a brutal truth. Civilization is a thin, fragile veil. And sometimes, all it takes is a microbe. So the next time you hear someone say, it could have been worse than COVID, remember this timeline, where it was. If you found this terrifying alternate history thought-provoking, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We dive deep into wild what-ifs and shocking realities that challenge how we see our world and what could have been. Drop your thoughts below. Would humanity have stood a chance if the Black Death returned in 2019? And if you want more dystopian explorations like this one, make sure to hit the bell so you never miss the next breakdown of a world that almost was. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and imagine carefully.